Well, hey friends, and welcome. Today, I want to share with you 24 things that you can get rid of in 2024. And as spring draws near, I feel like I always begin to crave a bit of a refresh in my home and life. A chance to let go of what I'm not using, not loving, or what's taking up space so that I can infuse my home with a sense of peace, of space, and to foster an environment that I want to spend time in, that's easy for me to relax in, rather than causing me feelings of stress or overwhelm. So I've got 24 very easy and practical ideas for different areas of your life that you can declutter that can make a huge difference. I want to get started with an easy one, and that's to go through your purses and bags. Now, over the years, I found that not only is this one of the quickest areas of your life that you can go through, but it's also one of the ones with the greatest impact, since your purses or bags are things that you're reaching for and using every single day. So if right now your bags are filled with old receipts and other things that you just don't need, I really encourage you to spend 10 to 15 minutes just going through and giving them a bit of a reset. And pull out any trash, empty products, anything that doesn't belong, and go ahead and return those items to where they go in your space. But I'd also say too, don't limit yourself to the contents of the bags. Go ahead and also look at the purses and bags that you have themselves. See if there's any that you don't use very frequently, that you just never find yourself reaching for, that are worn out, and consider letting go of those as well. But then on a bit of a different note, something else that you can let go of is old spices. And spices are one of those tricky things that don't always have an expiration date on them, or it might be years in the future. However, they do tend to diminish significantly in flavor over time. So because of that, it's a good idea to replace the herbs and spices that you have in your cabinets every couple of years. And an easy way to figure out whether or not your spices are past their prime or not is just to open up each container individually and smell it. If you aren't immediately hit with the scent of that herb or that spice, it's probably time to move on from it. Then another very practical thing that you can do is to let go of your empties. I find that it happens quite frequently when I'm decluttering that I'll come across either empty or near empty products that I've all but finished up or completely finished, but that haven't made their way out of my home. They're still taking up space in my closets and cupboards. If holding on to practically empty products is something that you can be guilty of as well, I'd recommend just doing a 5 to 10 minute scavenger hunt of your house to pull out any empty products. All right, we've started with some pretty easy categories. Now I want to touch on a bit of a harder one, and that's to declutter your sentimental items. For many of us, sentimental items hold a very special place in our hearts. They can be hard to let go of. I get that tension, that difficulty, but what I find is that often rather than working through it, we'll just kind of use that as an excuse to ignore our sentimental items altogether, never end up going through them. But the thing is, often what is sentimental to us does change and evolve over time as we change and evolve ourselves. So I think it's an important category of our homes and our lives for us to consider. So what I'd recommend is just setting aside a bit of time to go through your sentimental items, try to identify what is the best of the best, what really triggers the fondest memories or the strongest recollections for you. Keep that 10 to 20% of items, whether that's physical things, letters, photos, anything that really speaks to you, but then consider letting go of the rest. But then on a bit of a lighter, bit of an easier note, something else that you can tackle is the inside of your car. I feel like when it comes to the vehicles we drive, there are really two types of people. There's the person who always keeps their car spotless, there's never anything out of place in it. And then there's the person whose car is a disaster and filled with old receipts, empty wrappers, and just all kinds of clutter. If you're the former type of person, this might not be for you, but if you're the latter, I'd highly recommend just spending a bit of time going through the inside of your car and giving it a major refresh. Pull out any trash, put things away where they belong, organize what's left over, and if your car is looking a bit worse for wear, why not give it a bit of a cleaning as well? Much like our purses and bags, our cars are something that we use on a daily basis. And so spending time decluttering and refreshing them really can have a tremendous impact. Okay, then let's talk about shoes. Shoes often take up a surprising amount of space. So simplifying in this area can increase the amount of storage that you have available while also making it just a bit easier to get out the door. So in going through your shoe collection, a few things that you want to look for are any pairs that are worn out, that are uncomfortable, that give you blisters when you wear them. I like to look too for shoes that are super similar to other ones that you already own. So maybe they aren't exact duplicates, but they're close enough to the point where you can probably let go of one to free up space. And this is a big one, and that's to go through your junk drawer or utility drawer. I think for many of us, our junk drawers are spaces that may once have had a semblance of organization, but that have long since been overrun by different bits and bobs that either we didn't need or that we didn't want to spend the time or energy to properly give a home. If that sounds like your junk drawer, spending some time decluttering this space can make a huge difference. I went through that process a couple years ago and was able to completely transform my junk drawer into a utility drawer. But the thing is, even if you have a relatively organized utility drawer, you can probably stand to benefit a lot from just resetting the organization of that space, making sure that everything is where it belongs. And then let's talk about your hosting supplies. If you like to entertain a lot, or if you've just accumulated a lot of hosting supplies over the years, it can be a great idea to go through these items to see if there's anything that you don't need. Maybe that looks like excess servingware, platters, bowls, disposables that aren't in good condition or just that aren't needed. Really just look at the various hosting supplies that you have, try to identify and to pull out anything that you haven't used recently, even when hosting. Then your fridge and your freezer can be another great area to look at. Our refrigerators are a very high use area of our homes that can quickly spiral out of control if not regularly gone through. So this is one of those areas that's great just to get in the habit of regularly taking a look at. But every so often I like to do a deeper dive too, and to just pull out everything in my fridge to examine if there's anything that's expired, that's stale, that's gone bad, that I'm just not going to eat up. You can just appropriately dispose of those items, but then for anything that is still good, that's maybe on its way out, what I like to do is to put those things in a very prominent spot in my fridge. That way, when I open up the fridge doors, I see them, I'm reminded to eat them up before they go bad. That way I'm not creating any additional waste. Now let's talk about games and puzzles. Personally, I love a good game, I love a puzzle, but I truly do believe that they are only worth holding onto if you actually use them. Because if you don't, they take up a lot of storage space. So when it comes to games, I'd encourage you just to limit yourself to only keeping the ones that you regularly use and truly enjoy. So as you go through your games, your puzzle collection, try to think through, when was the last time you actually played that game? Did you really enjoy it? Did the puzzle that you built have all its pieces? Was it a fun puzzle to build, or maybe are there others that you prefer? Ask yourself questions like that, make up some of your own that may feel relevant, and then just declutter based on those answers. And then moving on, another space that you can declutter is your pantry. The pantry is a space that, when properly organized, can be incredibly functional and just make life easy. When disorganized, can be a huge source of headaches and just a pain to deal with. So if your pantry is currently a space that's making the cooking process less enjoyable for you, I definitely recommend spending some time going through it. Things that you want to look out for in this space is you want to remove anything that's stale, that's gone bad, that you tried and that you didn't like, that you don't see yourself finishing. If you have any duplicates, see if you can condense those. And then also too, if you have a lot of junk food and are maybe trying to eat a bit healthier, see if you can remove some of that as well, so that whenever you open up your pantry, you're confronted with healthier eating options. And then of course too, once you've decluttered what you don't need, I'd highly recommend spending some time just organizing what's left over, and that's really going to help make it so that your pantry is a far more functional, practical space. Alright, then I want to touch on a bit of a sneaky one, and that's digital clutter. This is a category of clutter that we often ignore in our lives because it doesn't take up a ton of physical space. But it really does make our devices a lot more difficult and just more of a pain to use. So if your computer or phone are pushing the upper limits of their storage, or your desktop or homepage are just a bit of a mess, definitely recommend spending some time deleting what you don't need. Go through your desktop, your downloads, your documents, maybe some of your photos, although that one can be a bit of a longer project. Then just make sure to organize and back up whatever it is that you're actually wanting to keep. And something else that can give you a very quick and easy decluttering win is to get rid of your old plastic and paper bags. What I'll say with bags is keep some if you have a use for them, but then with any excess, just appropriately recycle them. Of course, with paper bags, you can usually put those in your curbside recycling, but then with paper bags, you want to make sure to take those to an in-store drop-off. Then another space that you can look at decluttering is your entryway closet or cabinets. The entryway is a very high traffic area that often accumulates a lot of things that just don't belong. So just spend a few minutes putting things back away wherever they belong in your home, getting rid of any trash, and then also too, if there are any returns that you've kind of been meaning to take action on but haven't quite yet, or things that you need to give back to someone else, really make returning those things or giving those items back a priority so that they don't become clutter building up in your entry. Then another food category that can be really helpful to pay some special attention to is condiments. Can I just say, condiments can be super sneaky and easy to miss even when you're going through your fridge or your pantry. We can just gloss over them a bit, paying more attention instead to larger items. So I definitely recommend taking a few minutes just to look at your condiments specifically. Just double check the expiration dates, if there's any duplicates you have that you can condense, or if there's maybe a handful of items that you got for a specific recipe, but that you haven't touched since, and it's been months or years since you made that one specific meal that you bought that item for. Then one area we often tend to forget about until we're actively using is our cleaning supplies. I think because we often forget about it, our cleaning supplies storage space can often harbor a lot of clutter and disorganization. So go through and declutter the cabinet under your sink, your cleaning closet, your laundry room, whatever that space is for you. You want to remove any worn out rags, sponges, scrub brushes, any old toothbrushes that you maybe have too many of. Love using a good toothbrush for cleaning, but we can have too many of them. Then also too, get rid of anything you don't use. Maybe you tried something and just really didn't like the scent, or the product didn't work properly. That's fine, that happens. Just see if you might be able to pass that product on if it's still perfectly good, or if it truly doesn't work, just empty the product out, recycle the empty container. But then kind of along those same lines of areas of our homes we often forget about, can also be a great idea to go through your gift supplies. Many of us have a spot where we store our wrapping paper, gift bags, cards, and other gift wrapping supplies, but we only ever really tend to visit it when the need arises, when we have something we want to wrap. The problem is, because we don't really use those supplies all that frequently, it can be really easy for that storage space to become messy, disorganized, and cluttered. So just spending some time going through your gift wrapping supplies and removing anything that isn't in good condition, that you don't like, that you don't plan to use, or that perhaps you have just a ton of excess of to the point where you just don't see yourself ever getting to the end of it, that can really help to make your gift wrapping storage just a much more practical and useful space. We'll make it a bit easier the next time you actually go to wrap something. Okay, then another great space to go through is your book collection. Let me just say, I love reading. I'm a big fan of physical books. But if your books are currently bursting out of your bookshelves, or when you go to look for what you want to read next, you're not feeling inspired by anything in your collection, it's definitely possible that your books could use a bit of culling. When going through your book collection, I recommend looking out for any books that maybe you started and lost interest in, you never ended up finishing, books that you may have finished but just don't see yourself rereading, reference books that you just don't end up referencing, then anything too that you've either outgrown or lost interest in. Often our taste in books changes as we change over time, so it's good to go through the books that you own every so often just to make sure the ones that you have are ones that you're going to come back to and actually end up reading. Then a bit more of a general category that I'd recommend hunting down and decluttering is duplicates. And it is not uncommon for us to have multiple either identical or almost identical items hanging out around our homes. Not only do these items take up unnecessary space, but it can also be confusing if you have multiple of the same product open. Which one is the oldest that you want to use up first? So go around your house, just spend a bit of time identifying any duplicates that you may have. For consumable or personal care products, see if you might be able to condense those duplicates. So rather than having 2 bottles of something open, you just have one. And then for things like kitchen items, clothing, shoes, anything like that you might have duplicates of, what I'd recommend doing is just keep the one that you like the best, keep the spatula you like the best, keep the black pair of heels you enjoy wearing the most, then just declutter the duplicate. It's just a small thing that you can do to save space and to simplify your home and your life. Now let's talk about a big one, and that's the closet. Of course, your closet can be a larger project if you want to spend time going through every single item. However, I really want to encourage you that just spending 15 minutes going through your closet can make a huge difference. I did this with Christopher recently. We literally spent 15 minutes going through his side of the closet. We found over 20 items that he was ready and wanting to let go of. So take inventory of your clothing and just quickly pull out anything that doesn't fit. Maybe that's the wrong size, that's uncomfortable, that you don't like the way that it fits or the way that it looks on you, anything that you just don't wear. And also too, get rid of anything that's stained, that's ripped, that's worn out, or that's stretched out. It doesn't need to be complicated or time consuming. Just remove anything from your closet that's no longer serving you. And we're getting to the end of the list here. Something else you can declutter is your old art or hobby supplies. I love a good craft or art project as much as the next person. However, hobby supplies can be a huge source of clutter in our homes. So if you have any supplies related to a hobby that you haven't practiced in months or years, maybe you tried something and have since moved on, or if there's anything that's expired, that's broken, that's worn out, or you just have an excess of things that you actually do use, spend some time streamlining your art or hobby supplies to only what you actively are using and loving. And a bit more of an intangible but still important category is to go through and to declutter your social media follows. I'm a big believer in curating your online following to create a less cluttered and a more intentional social media space. It makes it a more positive and uplifting environment rather than one that brings you down. So just unfollow any accounts that aren't aligned with your goals, your values, or the person that you want to become. And we just have 2 categories left, but this is a big one, and that's to declutter your kitchen. Just like with our closets, there's often so much that we can declutter in the kitchen, but what I'd recommend doing is to try focusing on the handful of drawers or cabinets that are the most messy, the most disorganized, because that's where you're going to notice the greatest impact. So whether it's your coffee station, your small appliances, where you store your mugs or cooking utensils, whatever those areas are for you, spend some time figuring out if there's anything that you have an excess of that's mismatched, any items that you don't use, that you don't reach for, or that you just don't like. Go ahead and let go of those items. The kitchen is a very practical space, so if there are items that you're not using, you're not loving, can really make the space more functional and just enjoyable to be in, to let go of the things that you don't need. Then finally, let's wrap this up with a very quick one, but one that can give you a great bang for your buck time investment wise, and that's to go through your undergarments. Spend a minute going through your socks, your underwear, your bras, your thermal layers, really anything that you're wearing beneath your regular clothing, and just pull out anything that's holes, that's stretched out, that's uncomfortable, any socks that don't have a pair. This is one of my favorite areas to declutter because the items that you're getting rid of, you're not going to miss, and in fact, you'll probably be glad that you got them out of your closet. Just a little tip too, as you're going through this space, is to look at the bottom of your drawer or wherever you keep your undergarments first, because often the things that we don't like, that we don't reach for, end up sinking to the bottom. And so those are often the items that you're most going to want to declutter. But then of course too, make sure that you give everything else a quick pass over. All right, well, those are 24 things or areas of your life that you can get rid of in 2024. I hope that these ideas can really help to inspire and motivate you to simplify your space and to refresh your home. home. Now, I would love to know, is there anything that you're planning to let go of or spaces that you want to declutter this year? If there are, be sure to let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about your decluttering efforts. And as always, friends, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, friends.